Alright, let's take a look at using our Paths tool to put type around an object. So our Pen Paths tool. Grab your pen tool, and this time, instead of having a fill or the stroke, just set the shape here to path, and those options will disappear. So this time when we create a path, it won't actually show up as a layer in our layers panel, but it will in our paths panel, which I've got open. In fact, I'll drag out here to the side so we can see both the layers and the path at the same time. To add type to a path, you first have to create the path, and it's good to go in the direction that your type is going. So begin on the left and work to the right. And I'm going to not go right along the edge of this headband on the headphones, because I don't want my type to dip down in here, and you'll see what I mean here in just a minute. So I'm going to create a line that kind of goes around it and try to keep it from having too many funky lumpy bumps. Alright, next thing you need is your type tool. Now if you don't have your character and paragraph windows or panels open, I suggest doing that right now. So I'm going to open mine up. There we go. Once you have your type tool, and this is still just the regular type tool, set the alignment either in your paragraph panel or up in the toolbar to left align, and if you've got a specific font that you want to use, you can choose that one now. And I'm going to go for this one. I can't remember if that's what I used in the example or not, but it looked close. And you may have to adjust your size a little bit, but definitely get a color that will show up on this image. So I'm just going to color grab the purple off of there. Okay, I think we're ready to go. So if you hover over any point on this path, you'll notice that your cursor changes and you'll get kind of a dotted little S path through that. That just indicates that if you click, you will start typing. So I'm going to click once here and begin typing. And then hit Command Enter just like you would with any other type to finish it. Now if I look at my paths, I'll notice that I have what's called a work path. Work path is a temporary place where whatever path you make is stored, but when you move on to a different path, that will disappear. The next thing I have showing is the type path for whatever type I'm on. If I click on the background layer, you'll notice that actually disappears, but if I click on my type layer, it shows up. Now, I have no idea what your screen looks like. You probably need to adjust some things for your type. So here's some things that usually need adjusting. And you can double click on this to edit it just like any other type. First off, I'm going to hit the double caps on mine to turn it all into caps, and then you can affect things like the tracking, which is this little box over here in my character panel, and I can either set a value or just click on the words and drag my mouse to the right or left. The key command, if you want to do that, is Option, left and right arrow keys, which is what I usually do. You want to change the size, so we're trying to get this to line up pretty close to how I had it in the example. One thing that yours probably looks like is it's set right on to where that path is. So I've set mine back to where it's like that. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll create a path right along the edge of an object, but we don't want our type touching that edge. So the part that you would adjust for that would be to highlight it all and then change, it's called the baseline shift. And you can do that the same way we've changed everything else by just clicking on the symbol next to the value box and dragging. The command shortcut for this is Option Shift and then using your up and down arrow keys. And then once you've adjusted all of that, pretty much the last thing you adjust is the kerning. Now, the difference between kerning and tracking is the distance between all the letters in the type, and kerning is the difference between the two letters in the type. So you might notice that you're getting some really large spaces where some of this curves, so I would click to put my cursor between those, and hold Option and use my left and right arrows. So usually when you do type along a path, it does take a little bit of tweaking to make it look just absolutely perfect. Okay, and then hit Enter or Command Enter when you're done. There should be a little symbol here, so click on your background and then on your type to make sure that we're looking at the same thing. Let's see, I'm going to zoom in mine and do the same thing again. Oh, where did it go? Oh, I need my pen tool. Okay. There we go. Pen tool. Click on background, click on that. Now you'll notice right here there's a little tiny X. That is where you clicked to start your type. Now we clicked on the far left because I had it to left align. In fact, if I'd had it to center align, I would have clicked up here kind of in the center. But I can actually still control where this starts. So if I hold down, let's make sure I'm not sending you off on some wild goose chase here. Oh, there it is. Okay, so if you're around that area and you hold down Command, you might see that you get a type cursor with a little black arrow, and if you click and start dragging, you can move where that type is. And as long as your cursor stays on the top of that line, your type will stay the way you think it is. If you move your cursor across that line, it will flip around to the bottom, which is why I'm showing you this. Is if you started messing around with stuff and it flipped around to the bottom, that's why you need to find that little point, hold Command and click on it and just drag your cursor back up to the top. Alrighty. So this does look a little funky though. My line doesn't look the greatest. You can take your pen tool and come back here and adjust the line. So I just held Command and clicked on it to get my points. And I can still change the angle of those words as they follow along that path by just changing the anchor points and those Bezier handles. Once you have it uber duper perfect, hit Command Enter to finalize your type. And if you've got a selection like mine, just Command D to deselect. We'll get to using paths as selections later. The next place we want to add some type is here around the chord to make it match what's on the website. So what I would do is, once again, start by making a path. And I'm going to click about where I want this type to start. And I'm going to click and drag since this is a curved area. Do the same over here. And you can set these either right on that purple chord, which I think I'll do, or a little bit away from it. Grab your type tool, and this one let's do center so you can see how that works. Set it to center align. Oh boy, Command Z. I'm still on my old type layer. This is where it gets maybe a tiny bit confusing because paths are really not connected necessarily to layers or to pixels. So I thought I was working with something else, but I was still on my type layer. So I'm going to click on my background. This way I still have my path, it's here, I'm working with it, but when I go to change the alignment of the text, it won't change the type that I already spent time setting. So I'm on center. I'm going to click about center of where that line is and start typing. So I forget what station did we come up with for this. KZL. Now you'll notice I typed my whole name in there and then some of my type disappeared. Well, it's just kind of like with any other layer or paragraph box. Sorry, type paragraph box. If you type beyond the area of the box, some of it will disappear. But if you double click on the type layer here in your panel, it will highlight everything that's there, and then you can come up here and change the size or use the Command Shift greater less than keys. I can change my font to something else, and then I'm going to make this a little bit bigger again. And hit Enter. There we go. Now this one's a little further off the line than I want it to be, so remember that is your baseline shift, and it's using the same setting we had for our last type. That's this one down in the bottom, kind of towards the bottom left of your character panel that has an A with a little a heading up from it. If you click and drag to the left, it'll get closer to your path, and if you drag to the right, it'll get further away. And then pretty much the last thing you do anytime when you're doing path work is to just click between the letters that need a little bit of extra space or some taken away, and use your Option arrow keys to do some kerning, and then hit enter. So that was pretty rough and ready type on a path. I think we need to do one more example just to make sure we've got everything down. So here we go, start to finish. Click on the background so we're not going to affect a type layer that already exists, and then grab your pen tool. We've got it set to a path, and I'm going to create a path that more or less follows the curve inside of this headband. I keep saying headband, headphones. It's inside of the headband of the headphones. And then I want mine to be pretty much centered between my left and right points. So I'm going to grab my type tool, set the alignment to center, and hover over some of this type until I get my type tool. Now here's what happened. Of course this would happen. I actually made this type active when I tried clicking. So if something like that happened to you, be patient with yourself. Hit Command Enter to finish whatever you're doing, and do a couple of Command Z's or Command Option Z's to back up, and then just click down on your background layer and turn the eyeballs off on your other text layers for the moment. Alright, so now when you take your text tool and hover over that line, you should get a little S curve through it. I'm going to click and do my type. You can see this is huge, and also it's not sent to center like I thought it was going to be. Let's see what happened if I send it to center. This is going to be a good example for all the little tweaks that we need to do. First off, this is huge type, so I'm here on my type layer. I'm going to change this by clicking and dragging my type size over here until it's something that I can see a little bit more of. Now we need to see where the actual path is so we can change stuff. Click once in your type to make it active and look for that little X character. Okay, so we found the X, hold down Command, and hopefully your screen will do like I'm doing. And if you click and drag that to the left, here's what's going on. You see the little line that's right underneath radio? That's the center point, and it's being centered between where my mouse is and that last anchor point, so you can move that around. Remember, if you cross this line, it'll flip it underneath, which you might want to do someday, but this isn't the example for it. And I can tell my baseline is really high on this because it's far away from the path, so I'm just going to highlight this and click and drag on my baseline to get it to about where I want, and then hit enter to finalize. Turn my other ones on, zoom back, and take a look. Okay, there is a type on a path. It's kind of a fun tool. There's lots of tutorials out there showing you different things. This is just type on a pen path, and we will do type in a shape path next lesson.